Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's Western Planning Committee meeting. My name is Councillor Jo Clements, and I will be presiding over the first part of this meeting, at least. I will hand over now to Rebecca Rhodes, our Democratic Services Officer, and she will go through some housekeeping notes for us.
Thank you, Chair. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the Chair in case of disruption. For those in the room, please note if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite the front of this building in Bourne Avenue. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off microphones and turning the volume down completely on your laptops. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And do we have any apologies or substitute members this morning?
Yes, Chair. So apologies have been received from Councillor Marion Lepedevin and Councillor Peter Cooper, and we have Councillor George Farquhar here substituting for Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. So for the first part of this meeting, we're going to seek nominations for the election of the chair. Do I have any nominations be put forward? Okay, I nominate Councillor Lepedevin. Anybody to second? Councillor Chapman-Law, thank you very much. Are there any other nominations? No? Okay, that's carried, yeah? Okay, thank you. I will now hand over to Councillor Dedman, who will take the next part of this meeting.
Yes, thank you very much, members. I'm presiding over the election of the Vice Chair, and do I have any nominations for the role of Vice Chair, please?
I'll nominate Councillor Clements.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Thank you. Do we have any more nominations? Oh, we're looking around and not finding any. I think then, members, you're agreed on that. Thank you. Councillor Clements, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dedman, and thank you very much, members. So I can announce now that Councillor Lepedevin is successfully nominated as the chair of this committee and myself as vice chair.
Excuse me.
Okay, so can we please now go around the room and ask everybody to introduce themselves to the members of the public present and watching online. So I'm Councillor Jo Clements. I am vice chair of this committee and ward councillor for Pen Hill. You've already met Rebecca Rhodes. She's the Democratic Services Officer, and I'll pass over now to Kate.
I'm Development Management Manager. I'm Katie Harrington.
Sanju Timana, Team Leader, Strategic Applications.
Shelley Edwards, Senior Planning Officer, Strategic Applications.
Peter Sidaway, Councillor for Broadstone.
Adrian Chapman-Law, Councillor for Alderney and Bourne Valley.
Brian Hitchcock, Councillor for Hamworthy.
Councillor Karen Rampton, Talbot and Branksome Woods. This is my first time on this committee.
Councillor Simon McCormack, Burton and Grange Ward, and just to let the chair know that I'll be leaving after the first item.
Councillor Joe Salmon, Moordown Ward.
Councillor Gillian Martin, Boscombe West, and just to let you know, I'm actually, strictly speaking, this should be Cameron Adams sitting in my place. We've agreed a what, but he's agreed that I will do both committees unless I can't, and then he will substitute for me in those occasions, just to be clear.
Councillor George Farquhar, Boscombe East and Folkestone, substituted today for Councillor Cooper from Hamworthy.
Christiane Tan, Democratic Services Support today.
Thank you very much, everybody. Are there any declarations of interest at all? Councillor Rampton?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I will recuse myself from the first item, the home-based Redlands item, as I made representation when it was first advertised.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman-Law?
I am ward councillor, one of the ward councillors for 8A and 8C, but I must be determined, so I will be sitting on the committee.
And can we have the agreement for the confirmation of minutes from the last meeting? Is everybody in agreement with those? Yep. Okay, thank you. Okay. Do we have any public speakers or ward councillors who wish to speak today? Okay, thank you. So we carry on now to the schedule of planning applications. The first one is the former home base site at Redlands in Poole. And the officer is Shelley. Thank you.
Good morning. This application is to subdivide the existing vacant bulky goods retail unit previously occupied by Homebase within the Redlands Retail Park. That's accessed off Branksome Roundabout and is also referred to as Pottery Junction in the Alderney and Bourne Valley ward. The application proposes to divide the unit into 2 units. Unit 1 to be occupied by an M&S food hall, allowing the sale of food and drink, and Unit 2, which also includes a mezzanine floor, will retain the selling of bulky goods and DIY products. Currently, there is no occupier identified for Unit 2. The proposal includes alterations to the car park and outside areas where previously the garden centre existed to provide additional car parking, landscaping and a rear service bay. In terms of policy, the proposed use as a food hall is considered a main town centre use, and policy PP22 of the local plan sets out where these uses are acceptable outside of a town centre location. A retail impact assessment has been submitted with the application and has been independently reviewed by Nexus Planning, who have identified the 3 district centres impacted by the proposals, and those being M&S in Westbourne, Broadstone and Waitrose in Ashley Road. The submitted sequential test was reviewed as part of the retail assessment, and Nexus have concluded that this has been met as no alternative site is available. The test in paragraph 94 of the MPPF is whether there is likely to be a significant adverse impact, and if so, it should be refused. Nexus have concluded that there is insufficient evidence that the proposal would result in a likely significant adverse impact, and therefore the application is considered acceptable in terms of retail policy, as it meets the sequential test and the scale, role, function and nature is appropriate in this retail location and would not undermine the retail strategy. A member of Nexus Planning is available online to answer any questions that members might have today. PP22 Section C requires that sites in the retail park should predominantly be for the selling of bulky goods and DIY products. This point is covered in the committee addendum that the food hall in Unit 1, which would make up around 61%, apologies, my addendum stated 51%, however, this didn't cover the overall floor space, and therefore the scheme would marginally tip the majority. However, the officers considered that this marginal non-compliance would not be sufficient to warrant refusal of the scheme, as the other sections of the policy are met. Planning conditions are secured for the restrictions on goods sold by Units 1 and 2, as proposed by this permission, and specifically that Unit 2 is restricted to selling bulky and DIY goods in accordance with the policy. The addendum also covers that legal agreement to control the goods sold by the units has not been entered into, and this we consider is in accordance with paragraph 56 of the MPPF, which states that planning obligations should only be used where it is not possible to address unacceptable impacts through a planning condition. The alterations to the exterior of the building are minor, and the removal of the garden centre structures and wave detail to the building have already been approved under minor planning applications, in readiness to implement this application as soon as possible following approval. The white cladding and black fenestration above the existing brickwork would be consistent with M&S stores and would complement the appearance of the retail park in accordance with PP27. The application was supported by a transport assessment, which concluded that the proposal would not have a severe traffic impact. This is mainly due to the existing use on the site that can generate traffic. The traffic to the site won't necessarily be at peak times, and some of the traffic will already be on the network and visiting the retail park. The proposal will encourage customers to walk or cycle from the local community. The car park reconfiguration provides an additional 38 car parking spaces and 58 cycle parking spaces, where the existing provision was only 12. The revised layout provides improved pedestrian routes into the site, and a pedestrian crossing has been secured across Older Road to provide a safe crossing for local residents. In addition to this, the applicant has agreed to pay £30,000 to provide a replacement bus shelter on Older Road, providing real-time information and further encouraging sustainable travel, and this will be secured by a legal agreement. To conclude, there are no highway objections to the scheme, and the proposal would provide highway safety improvements and support sustainable travel in accordance with PP 34, 35 and 36 and the parking standards SPD. The development is an existing retail unit within an existing retail park and impacts on neighbouring amenity in terms of overlooking, overshadowing or being overbearing are not a concern. The application does, however, include a new service bay to the northwestern section of the site where deliveries will take place. And following the introduction of new plant in this location, an acoustic fence is proposed along this boundary to protect the amenity of the properties opposite in Older Road. This is considered sufficient to address concerns regarding noise disturbance and is secured by condition. A delivery management plan and the relevant delivery restrictions are also secured by condition to preserve neighbouring amenity in accordance with PP27. The proposal introduces new areas of landscaping to the south and southwest of the site. BNG is engaged as the development results in the loss of a low-quality silver birch tree that's currently damaging the western fence line. 7 new trees are proposed within the site, in addition to the shrubs, and hedgerow, and the development will achieve the 10% biodiversity net gain requirement. The additional planting will enhance the appearance of the site in the street scene in accordance with PP27 and PP33, and conditions are secured for its implementation. The appropriate conditions are secured for contaminated land risk, surface water drainage systems, and renewable energy and flood mitigation. In addition to the addendum items already covered, a revised site plan was received yesterday to make clear reference to which unit is Unit 1 and which is Unit 2 for the benefit of imposing planning conditions relating to the restrictions on the site. However, the site plan received for the addendum also included the temporary plant which was originally omitted from the scheme, and therefore a new site plan will need to be approved as part of this application that omits this unit that's obviously put there by mistake. A new condition is proposed to secure the use of Unit 1 as it is proposed for the food hall use only, and the sustainability condition has been amended to allow a degree of flexibility given that it is for a refurbishment application. Amendments to sections in the report cover the marginal non-accordance with PP22. To conclude, the proposal will have some adverse impacts on the district centres of Broadstone, Westbourne and Ashley Road. However, there is insufficient evidence to demonstrate that the impacts on these district centres would be likely significant adverse impacts to warrant refusal of the scheme in accordance with paragraph 56 of the NPPF. The non-compliance with PP22 section 4C is considered marginal, and as the proposal accords with sections A and B of this policy, on balance, it is considered acceptable to comply with the development plan as a whole. In addition, the Council have received a high level of support for the scheme from the public. The proposal would utilise a vacant unit, provide highways improvements, improve landscaping and BNG, and is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions and legal agreements securing the bus shelter, as suggested within the officer's report and the committee addendum. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Ms Edwards. I'm now going to ask the Democratic Services Officer if we have any members of the public who are registered to speak.
Thank you, Chair. We've got no registered objectors to speak today. We've had 2 people registered to speak in support. The first one is unable to be here, so I will read out a short statement on her behalf. And then we have Mr. Phil Marsden from the applicant. If you want to head up towards the table, you'll be speaking afterwards in support. So the first bit I have is a statement from Ms. Rebecca Toynton, and she's in support, saying, I would love to speak in support from of Marks and Spencer's. They're an amazing company. Their food is amazing and prices are cheaper than Asda, Tesco and Sainsbury's. I drive to Ferndown 3 days a week for their food and cakes. Some things are more expensive and I've never had a problem with their food or clothes. I'm a carer of my disabled sons. I also work for BCP, delivering disabled children to school and home again. People are moaning about the traffic as it's hell in the morning, but I shop between 10 and 12 at sensible times. Thank you for your time. And we'll pass over to Mr. Marsden.
Good morning. My name is Phil Marsden and I'm a town planning manager at Marks and Spencer. This application will deliver a modern, fit for the future M&S food hall at the vacant former home base site at Poole Retail Park. The store will have a sales area of 20,000 square feet, enabling our full food range to be sold, including all our customer favourites. The store will include an in-store bakery, hot chicken counter, sushi bar, and a click and collect point so customers can order fashion and home items online and then collect them in store. We're investing circa £12 million into this site. This significant investment will create a market-leading retail experience for our customers and create up to 90 jobs, both full and part-time roles available. The store will also help support local suppliers and farmers. Within the Poole and Dorset area, we work with several farms and local companies, including Silver Crane, which is based in Poole, a business that makes decorative biscuit tins. The key considerations for the planning application are retail policy and highways. Regarding retail policy, the proposal has been assessed by the Council's independent advisor and based on comprehensive information, including new surveys. It has been concluded that the sequential test has been passed and that the proposal is not likely to have a significant adverse impact upon any nearby centres. Our existing smaller food halls in Westbourne and Broadstone are unaffected by this proposal. They meet a more localised need given their smaller size, and we have existing leases in place there until 2031 and 2037 respectively. Regarding highways, there is no objection from officers. We are contributing £30,000 to upgrade a bus shelter on Alder Road, and a new pedestrian crossing is proposed. These measures will help encourage travel to the site by bus and on foot. There are no objections from statutory consultees on any other technical matters, and there is strong local support for this proposal. I respectfully ask you to follow the recommendation and vote to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marsden. As there are no ward councillors, oh, there is. Councillor Tony Trent, would you like to come forward?
Yeah, thank you. This was one that when it was submitted, it did intrigue me, having been in the position where we refused the previous application for an Aldi, and I thought this was an odd one. But I felt less concerned about this than the Aldi proposal because Marks and Spencer's, well, it's on an existing site and it's more niche. But there are a few things that do concern me. 38 extra car parking spaces indicates to me quite an increase in traffic usage. And one of the objections I raised last time applies equally or almost equally to this one, in as much as the junction with the main Pottery roundabout, that is awful, and you actually take calculated risks to get out of the sort of I still call it the home base site, but you do take calculated risks. That is a junction that needs urgent attention, and for every type of user, and I think that we really need to look at that seriously. I was relieved that the pedestrian crossing was still part of it, although I had to read it a second time before I, was sure that was the case. If the new bus shelter is on the east side, or the home base side as I would call it, then I would question whether that was particularly worth it, because I've never seen anyone waiting for a bus at that stop, because all of the buses from that point onwards go basically the same route or the same variations of route into Poole, and the M1 and M2's opposite. Lots of people are light at that stop, but they don't board at that stop. So I do question whether that was a good use of a contribution on that. And the one objection that I saw that I felt a sympathy towards was the accessibility by disabled buggies, and also the parking of disabled buggies, or the storage of disabled buggies. We unfortunately are becoming a less active community. We're getting older. We will be following the likes of Japan as much. There will be more old people than there are sort of working age people. And with the reduction in physical activity in all forms of travel, because practically every form of travel now seems to be power assisted, even amongst children, sort of thing, motorized scooters and things like that. So I think there needs to be provision for disabled buggies there. We do need to think much more about the state of the pavements and the other facilities, because that's dangerous, but that's a more general point. But I do think that, yes, I welcome the crossing, long needed. Bus shelter on the east side of that, I question. The west side of it, definitely we need a bus shelter, but the east side of it, I'm thinking, is that just icing on the cake? And disabled access, or disabled sort of storage, whatever, that I think I've got a sympathy towards, but we need to do something to make it safer to get off that site, because it is awful getting off that site. And the fact that we're allowing quite a major application on that site without doing any, that increases the use of it, without actually doing anything about egress from the site, does worry me. So I think those are my main points. Having not written them down, I've probably forgotten a dozen others, but.
Thank you very much, Councillor Trent. Can we now move on to questions? If any members have questions they'd like to ask of the officers regarding this application, please. Councillor Salmon.
So I've got a few questions, just because. Oh, sorry, I'm just talking now, sir. Yeah, I've got a few questions on the application. I think primarily around the sequential test, first of all, because in my mind, it's very important that that's exhaustive. And it looks to me, reading this report, that actually there are some contentious issues there. The section on disaggregation, I'd really like to understand why the project wasn't looked at as a whole. I think I'm reading this right. It wasn't looked at as a whole. It was only a single unit. Am I understanding that right, first of all?
Matt, do you want to come in on these questions?
Thanks, Shelley. Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Morris. I'm a director at Nexus Planning. As Shelley has said, we've advised your officers on the retail and town centre planning policy aspects of this application. Councillor, in response to your question about the sequential test, it's a good question. The red line for the application, as you'll have seen, goes round the whole of the former home base unit, which was on screen a moment ago. It is proposed to be subdivided. The smaller of the two units, Unit 2, is proposed to stay selling the same range of goods as it already can do. It's Unit 1, the newly created Unit 1 for Marks and Spencer's, where the change of retail goods is proposed. The applicant, and this is the area of difference between ourselves and the applicant, is that the applicant, in terms of the sequential test, where the main point is to consider whether there are any more central sites within your town centres which can accommodate this proposal. The difference between ourselves and the applicant is that the applicant has looked for alternatives that can accommodate both units 1 and 2. We have focused upon unit 1 alone. The reason why we have done so is because that is the only part of the proposal, in our view, that is new to the site. It's the unit that's selling a different range of goods to that is currently permitted. The other unit has been excluded from the search of alternatives because it's selling the same range of goods. So that has been how we've approached the sequential tests on a smaller size requirement than the applicant.
Okay, and then just to come back on that, then I'm really curious. Has there been much flexibility applied when you're looking at applying that sequential test? Then, so we've been looking at the scheme as a whole. When you've looked at sites in the town centres, has there been a lot of wiggle room or not very much? Just as a layman, a lot of this is something I'd like a lot more detail on, because I am very concerned about the state of our town centres and that we make sure development like this happens there first if possible. I'd just like to know, what degree of flexibility was there when this search was conducted?
It's fair to summarise the overall position that both the applicant and ourselves have employed flexibility in scale and format, which is in line with policy. The difference comes, I think it's fair to say, in terms of the extent of flexibility that we've applied as opposed to the applicant. We've applied more flexibility. So we have to remember that this is going to be a food store, a large food store. Large food stores need car parking for customers to put their goods into their car if they're travelling to the store by car. The applicant would like that car parking to be on the same site as the store. Understandably, that will be the first preference, obviously. We've also looked at sites where car parking has been adjacent to the unit, which hasn't been part of the same site. So, for example, units within Bournemouth town centre where car parking is obviously not part of the store, but is in a close walking distance. And whilst the applicant has looked at a number of different centres for alternatives, the focus for the alternatives and the amount of flexibility is focused upon Bournemouth town centre, and in particular, as I think it might well be said within Shelley's report, the former M&S in the town centre. But it's fair to say that flexibility has been employed. There is a difference of opinion about what sort of flexibility, and we hadn't reached agreement with the applicant over that. We felt that the former M&S should have been actively considered more by the applicant. However, a series of events regarding its availability, as Shelley has pointed out within her report, has meant that the former M&S is now no longer available, even though we felt that it was potentially a suitable and more central alternative for this proposal. Hopefully that gives you a reasonable summary, Councillor.
Yeah, I've just got 2 more follow-up questions, then I'll be done, I promise. So just on the flexibility then, it sounds like even if the parameters were slightly widened, no more alternative sites would have come out of that search. I think actually, So I think I've answered my first and my second two questions there myself. I don't think there is anything else potentially. The other question I was going to ask was more for officers, I think, on paragraphs 36 and 37, because I would just like to understand. So that's just on the availability in the bit on the sequential tests. In my mind, that site is suitable, and almost what's going on with the owners and all of that, and if it's going to be commercially viable and whatnot for M&S, I wasn't sure to what degree that's a material planning consideration almost. I feel like in other circumstances, we'd be told, look, that's a suitable site. The business that's going on behind there, we're not fussed about that. This is planning only. From an officer point of view, how much weight can we give this information we're being told about Sandstone Limited going, oh no, we wouldn't allow this to go ahead? Is that something we really should be weighting so heavily in our decision?
Thank you. Ms Edwards, are you able to answer that, or?
Matt, might you be a better placed to respond to this one?
Mr Morris, are you able to come in?
Yes, of course. Thank you. So the history of the site councillor, which you'll probably be aware of, former M&S, owned by M&S as we understand it, and was sold very recently to another property company, which you've seen from Shelley's reports. The site is vacant. It's still on face value available, and we understand that the property company that has bought the M&S premises would like to refurbish it and bring it back into active use. However, we understand that following the purchase, or as part of the purchase exercise, that a number of issues regarding the property to do with asbestos and other matters have come to light, which meant that the property is not going to be immediately available, or to use the term within planning policy, available within a reasonable period of time. That is the message which we've been given by the new owner, and that is the information that's the only information that officers and ourselves are putting weight on to conclude that the property is now not available for this particular proposal. It may well become available in the future. However, the information is that the property company is not at this time in a position to refurbish the building to allow it to accommodate on the ground floor, probably, a food store that is similar to what Marks and Spencer are proposing at Poole Retail Park. That is the extent of the information that's being relied upon by both ourselves and by the applicant in relation to availability.
Thank you, Mr Morris. A very concise and descriptive answer. Are you happy with that, Councillor Salmon? Thank you.
Yeah.
And I believe Councillor Martin.
Just I wanted to ask a question in response to, I wanted to clarify concerns raised by Councillor Tony Trent when he said that he felt it wasn't, I'm not going to quote verbatim, but he was a little bit concerned about disabled access. So my question is, what arrangements are being made for disabled access, and also parents with prams, and including parking as well for people? So for people using a mobility scooter, but a car as well, or a wheelchair and a car, or a pram and a car, yeah. And going into the store, shopping in the store, and coming out again and being able to park somewhere.
The application includes car parking spaces for disabled and for young children, mothers, fathers with pushchairs. The mobility scooters are not actually. Is Lee Smith available, the Transport Highways Officer? Might be a good one to respond on that one.
Mr Smith.
Hi there. Yeah, just in terms of the mobility scooters, I think what Shelley was going to go on to say, our parking standards SPD doesn't place a particular requirement for mobility scooters for use of this nature. However, Marks and Spencer's obviously will have their own disability standards to comply with, and government law, and my own experience of local M&S to me, which is in Christchurch, they allow people to park mobility scooters in the foyer area or park them appropriately, or even the store itself is designed to allow those to go around the store. And Sherry's correct, there are a number of disabled and parent and child friendly spaces along the frontage, which are shown on the site plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Farquhar?
Just as a follow-on to that question from Councillor Martin and also Councillor Trent's concern, particularly for access to the retail park as a whole, has any studies been done as regards the nature of the number of accessibility scooters that may actually use the park? And in addition to that, perhaps from the highways perspective, has there been any complaints as regards drop curbs or any accessibility issues that cause inconvenience to those using accessibility devices? Thank you.
A question for Mr. Smith. Yeah, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, just to come back on that, I'm not aware of any specific complaints about drop curbs, but I don't work in the team that would deal with those complaints. In terms of the car park itself, being able to access through that car park to get into the store, there is level access through the car park, so that you could sort of wheel your scooter around or wheelchair around and access through the car park, and it's perfectly level. The new crossing facility that's going in on Alder Road will have appropriate tactile pavement as well, and lowered curbs to allow people to cross at that point as well.
If I may, Chair, I asked if any studies were actually made to those that use accessibility aids to access the retail park as a whole. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll just come back on that. That wouldn't be a requirement for this applicant to carry out those studies, so they haven't done those studies as part of this application. Whether as a local highway authority we've done those wider studies, I can't answer that question, but I can certainly get somebody in the appropriate team to respond to the councillor outside of this planning committee. But with regards to this specific application, given the scale of the application, it's not something we would require the applicant to do.
Thank you.
Sorry, I pressed the magic chairs button and knocked everyone's microphones out. Just to clarify, it's not a requirement within planning for the applicant or otherwise to undertake studies regarding use of other mobility means. But I take your point; it's interesting, and but it's not something that's either within the NPPF or within current planning policy at this time.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Councillor Sidway.
Question about traffic and the roundabout that Councillor Trent mentioned. If you go to that site, it's usually pretty busy, and getting onto that roundabout is not easy at the best of times. I just feel like the report glosses over that issue. It says there's a comprehensive transport assessment, presumably from the applicant. I don't see it on the portal. And I wondered whether Mr. Smith would like to comment on the impact of traffic and whether they've done any studies on the volume of traffic that is there currently, which at peak times is massive, and that there's no doubt in my mind, having got an M&S in Broadstone, the impact on traffic of an M&S is not insignificant. And I just don't see it mentioned in here. I think it's been completely glossed over, and I'd like to hear what Mr. Smith has to say about it.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, Chair. The applicant did submit a comprehensive transport assessment. We did our own studies of that transport assessment and our own assessment of traffic. The councillor is right, that roundabout's a particularly busy roundabout, and we're aware of that as a local highway authority. There are some elements to this application that we need to consider, which is the fact that there's existing use on the site, which would have some traffic generation. It's not the whole building being converted, although I will accept it's the majority of it. It's providing a local offering, so a number of, not that this swayed our judgment, but there are a number of letters of support, people in the local area talking about being able to access the store walking and cycling, and the new crossing will help that. And that might reduce some journeys from further away, those people who may have driven to stores further away, so a wider decrease in traffic perhaps. In terms of the Redlands exit, a number of comments about it's been difficult to exit the retail park. I would say from a local highway authority point of view, that's not necessarily a priority for us. That's an inconvenience for people wanting to get out of the retail store area and the whole retail park. It's just traffic queuing back into a car park. It's not a particular highway safety issue, and that doesn't necessarily affect congestion on the main road. That's just an inconvenience. With regards to the studies the applicant did, assessing those again, they made some points which we agree with. People visiting the retail store and the M&S, less likely to be travelling at peak hour morning traffic times and peak hour afternoon traffic times. So sort of 8 till 9 in the morning, 8 till 9:30, and evening will be 4:30 till around 6:30. Those are not peak traffic times for supermarket access by the public. If it was evening, sort of travelling home from work, those trips are already on the network anyway. So just to divert off into the M&S store to get something on the way home from work would not necessarily be an additional trip. It's what we call pass-by trips. The other element is some people will be on the retail park already. They may be visiting some of the other stores, so they're already on the network. So considering all those sort of factors and looking at the impact of the store increasing traffic, which there will be, I accept that, it's not at a level where we think we could insist this Marks and Spencer store sorts all the problems out that are at that Branksome roundabout. We, from a highway authority point of view, are looking at various schemes and various studies to try and see how we can improve traffic along the network, such as red routes, such as encouraging people to walk and cycle and get the bus. Those are our sort of priorities in terms of as a local highway authority. But I think it comes down to that significant harm element. The studies were fairly comprehensive by the applicant. We've done our own assessment, and it's difficult to prove significant harm. That would mean we couldn't support the application, particularly with some of the measures that they're proposing, and I referred to the crossing. So hopefully that gives you some idea. We have done the appropriate assessment, and we agree with the majority of what the applicant said in their assessments.
Thank you. Is
I'll just
satisfied?
come back on that if I may. Why can't we see the report? Why haven't we got the assessment? Because having spent some time on this committee, every traffic management plan that we see submitted by an applicant is very much from their point of view. We have one in Broadstone at the moment where they did that assessment at completely the wrong time. The highways officer went along and said they've done it at completely the wrong time, and therefore it's really rubbish. And I'm concerned that this has not been shared with us, unless I've missed it on the document somewhere on the portal.
It shows
Good,
on
good.
our system that it was available and it was received on the 21st of August last year.
But it's not on the public portal. So I couldn't see it. I don't think the public could comment on it. And I disagree with Mr. Smith. I mean, I drive around that way many times, and it does affect the traffic on the main road. And I think PP34 is asking for probably a higher standard of response than we've received so far.
Thank you, Councillor Sidaway. Mr. Smith, do you want to add anything further?
Whether the transport assessments on the file is a matter for the local planning authority to administer that. I believe my report is on the file, which goes through how we've carried out our assessments. And I think I'd come down to that element. Yes, it is a very congested roundabout, and we're aware of that. It's whether it's down to this application and the level of impact of this application is such that it should sort out all those problems. And any schemes we ask an application to carry out, any highway schemes, have to be proportionate to the impact. Obviously, you can appreciate to sort out all the issues of that roundabout and the other roundabout, Alder Road, Ashley Road junction close by, and further along going towards the train station. To sort out those issues is going to be fairly comprehensive and fairly expensive. And I've covered this over 20 years now. There's been a significant number of feasibility studies done and ways of trying to resolve those issues. There are some ways. Removing pedestrian crossings would resolve. We're not going to do that. They are there to help people cross the road. But so we need to balance up whether this application itself can sort all those issues out, and that wouldn't be proportionate. And the second thing is, would the impact be so severe that would refuse it? And that's where we come to our conclusion of not recommending refusal on the application. I know it doesn't sort of fully appease the councillor's concerns, but as highway authority, we need to look at whether we could recommend refusal and defend that at appeal, and we don't think we could on this application.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith.
Just to say, the report is on the portal. I was just looking at the wrong part of the portal, so we can go through that. But I would like to just say that I think whenever I see that highways team relying on the applicant, it always gives me a little bit of a concern, because I think they do tend to gloss it up. Why wouldn't they? They're trying to sell us the deal.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Harrington, did you want to add anything?
No, it's all been dealt with.
Okay. Are there any other questions at all? from members? No. Okay, thank you. So we'll go now on to discussion. If anybody would like to start, Councillor Martin.
I've got a number of points. Just bear with me. I'm going to disagree with Councillor Trent on the bus shelter. I think actually a digital bus shelter offered by the applicant is a really great idea. I think, although it's probably not used very often now, I think people are more likely to use a bus stop with a state-of-the-art display. I've started to use buses more often now, but I personally feel a lot more comfortable when I can see a digital display and I know when the bus is going to be coming. It makes me feel safer, particularly on colder days when you're thinking, oh God, how long am I going to be standing here? So actually people might start using it more if they've got that. Google Maps are also providing more up-to-date information. There's a More app. And I think if you've got live real-time information on when your bus is going to arrive, it's going to be a little bit of a game changer. So I think the bus stop is not a waste of £30,000. I think it's £30,000 well spent. I think it ought to remain a single unit because there are lots of other units on that particular site. There are lots, if you go further into the site, there's John Lewis opposite, but if you go further in, there's lots of little single units. And I'm thinking it will future-proof the site if you've got if you keep at least one big unit. I think that's really important for the future. Not saying that Marks and Spencers will fail, but if it does fail, you've still got one big unit there, which is a great idea. The Poole residents, I know loads and loads of. I don't live in Poole myself, but I've got lots of friends there, and they really miss the M&S in Poole Centre. It's I think it's perfect having it out of town because people can shop, take things home in the car. Parking's horrendously expensive in Bournemouth to the point of being prohibitive to run a business there anymore. It's that sort of business there. And I've just got to say, I am a little bit biased. I'm not predisposed, but Marks and Spencers is a wonderful shopping experience for people. It's so I would. It's sort of the sort of thing that I would welcome here. I think it's going to be good for the locals. They can use click and collect, which is like online shopping, but a little bit enhanced. And they've got somewhere close by they can take goods back to quite easily as well. So I would be in favour of this application. Thank you.
Councillor Salmon.
Yeah, there are some points there I strongly disagree with. I've not given up, like Councillor Martin, on the prospect of Bournemouth Town Centre being a viable commercial centre because of parking costs. And when it comes to this application, I tell you what, the clash on PP22 makes me think of when we were running treatment centres during the pandemic. And actually, when we had policies for infection control, we didn't go, oh, they've really complied well with these parts of the policy, so we can overlook non-compliance with these parts of the policy. PP22 is still in date. We don't have a new local plan. It is in there for a reason, for the protection of our town centres. Our town centres are in a dire state. They are experiencing commercial decline. I am very reluctant to approve any application that doesn't comply entirely with those policies. With that alone, that clash alone, I think I would have a tough decision. Looking at the sequential test and the evidence for the unavailability, I'm not convinced that's been robust either. I am tending towards refusal. I don't want to give up on our town centres. I don't want to give up on their commercial development. And any application that I think would be suitable for the town centre, like this, I don't want to see going out of town without being absolutely convinced that we've done everything we can to make sure that it couldn't happen in the town centre. I don't see that with the application of the sequential test, and I don't like that it clashes with PP22. I think those are both solid grounds for refusal.
Thank you. Anybody with anything further to add at all? No? Okay. Well, I would just like to add, I think overall this is actually quite a favourable application, and I I agree with the problems experienced on that roundabout. I go there probably every day, and it's a big roundabout and it's busy. Try going to Hyde Park Corner. That's a roundabout. So I don't personally see any problems at all that would warrant a refusal on this. So would anybody like to? Thank you, Councillor Hitchcock and Councillor Martin to second. Thank you. So now, if we go to the vote, yes, can I ask for all those in favour?
Could you clarify the proposal first? So is
Yeah,
it to go with the recommendation?
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, carry on.
So we need to clarify what the proposal is, and which I understand is for approval, subject to the conditions written report and the amendment sheet and the additional amended plan.
Okay, are you happy with that? Yeah, and Councillor Martin? Yeah, okay, good. Can we go to the vote? Yeah. So all those in favour, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And those against?
1.
And that's two. Two.
2.
Yeah. And abstain?
That's everything.
Anybody? No, everyone.
That's everything.
That's great. Thank you very much. So we can move on to the next item, but I believe we're waiting for some officers to arrive.
We'll have a
So
brief
we'll have a brief break. Thank you. So we will first of all receive our presentation from the planning officer, Kellen Hanks. And the item is the Cobham Sports and Social Club in Merley Park Road, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, all. So the application I will be presenting is Cobham Sports and Social Club. The application is for the retrospective installation of additional floodlighting to the existing artificial grass sports pitch. The new floodlights that are subject to this application are installed on site. 2 new columns of a height of 6 metres are erected in the middle of the length of the pitch on both sides, consisting of 2 lights on each, and other new lights are installed on the previously existing columns. The row of trees shown on the proposed site plan is not part of this application as they are proposed beyond the red line, and this has also been removed from the description of development. The application site is a football pitch which is part of Cobham Sports Club, located on the northern side of Merley Park Road. The site is located within the south-east greenbelt and approximately 500 metres from the Ashington Conservation Area. To the southeastern boundary of the club, there are residential properties. Given the nature and minor scale of the new lights that are associated with the previously approved pitch, they would not be considered harmful to the openness of the greenbelt, nor the character and appearance of the area. This slide shows photos of the site where the floodlights are positioned towards the football pitch. Regarding neighbouring amenities, the additional lighting does not cause any harmful shading, is not overbearing, and does not cause loss of outlook or loss of privacy for the occupiers of the residential properties. The distance between the installed lights and the residential property's rear boundary is between 12 to 16 metres. The photo on the left, the photo on the left shows the distance between the pitch and the rear boundaries of the neighbouring properties where the floodlights are shown facing the pitch. These are further photos of the site showing the pitch, residential properties and the car park. The application and submitted lighting construction layout and lighting calculations has been assessed by BCP Environmental Health, who concluded that submitted lighting information demonstrates sufficiently that the provision of illumination for the safe use of the pitch is adequate and appropriate, and that the control of light spill to the surrounding residential properties is effective, such that the risk of light nuisance is satisfactorily mitigated. They stated that the updated modelling demonstrates that predicted light levels at nearby residential receptors are now consistent with the relevant criteria set out in the ILP guidance, the reduction of obtrusive light, which forms a primary reference for assessing light intrusion and residential amenity impacts. In addition, the proposed 2140 lighting curfew provides an important and appropriate safeguard in terms of protecting residential amenity during the later evening period and is consistent with the principles of the guidance in applying temporal controls to limit obtrusive light that is secured by a condition. The application site is close to the established ecological network, which includes Dorset Heathland, as well as Camford Heath, Lee Common and Corvan Barrow Hills, that is attractive for wildlife. The Council's biodiversity officer assessed the proposal and raised no objection to the use of the new floodlights and their impact on any protected species near the site, subject to a condition to limit usage of lighting from dusk until 9:30. However, this is different to the time imposed on the previous permission for the artificial football pitch, which was 9:40, so therefore this will be reimposed. BCP Highways concluded that the scheme has no adverse impact on highway safety and the proposal is exempt from B&G. It is de minimis as there is no more than 25 square metres of habitat or 5 metres of linear habitat impacted by the development. The changes from the addendum sheet are as follows. Paragraph 31 and 40 have had the time limit change from 9:30 p.m. to 9:40 p.m. Monday to Sunday, including bank holidays, to align with the previous permission for the artificial football pitch. The condition has been amended accordingly. A condition has been added to ensure the floodlights will be installed in accordance with the approved lighting calculation and lighting construction layout, and would need to be implemented within 2 months from this decision date. Therefore, subject to these conditions, the application is therefore recommended for approval.
Thank you very much. And do we have any registered speakers? Okay, so we have speaking as an objector, we have Mr. Peter Downton. Is he there? Thank you. Please come forward.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the committee on behalf of my wife, myself, my next door neighbours, Mr. and Mrs. Chan. My wife and I live at 3 Oakley Hill in Murley. Our neighbours live at number 5. Both back onto the Common Sports and Social Club site. The recently installed 3G all-weather pitch is only 22 metres from our lounge and kitchen windows and sits approximately 3 metres above our property floors. And if you want an idea of that, it's about the length of this room and about the height of that television. So if I'm sat at the back of the room, the pitch is where the television is. We have lived in our property for almost 20 years, but it has been my wife's family home for almost 75 years, since it was built by her father in 1951. I was a member of the Sports and Social Club in its formative years in the 1960s, and after a short break, have been a member for the last 44 years. We therefore know the area and the site extremely well. We both made objections to the original plan for the pitch back in May 2025, based on noise and disturbance. As the existing floodlights were to be used, no objection to them was considered. The plans were passed apparently with little consideration or respect shown to the adjacent properties, especially number 3 and number 5, the nearest properties. We believe the permission was given based on certain usage considerations. The disturbance to our everyday lives has now become intolerable as the site dominates our living rooms and rear gardens and has become very oppressive and intimidating. The site is in constant use on most weekday evenings and daytime at weekends. We find it unacceptable to have to sit in our lounges with all the doors and windows closed and the curtains drawn. We wonder if the site was ever visited by a planning officer to view the layout prior to or since the plan's approval. It was as it submitted the breach of planning to the council. Part of the original plan was to use existing floodlights that were present at the proposed site. This consisted of 4 existing columns, 1 in each corner of the pitch, with a light unit on each column, a total of 4 lights. We draw attention to paragraph 7 of the planning permission document dated the 14th of July 2025, which states that no further floodlighting other than that shown on the approved plans shall be installed on the application site. The new lighting system installed prior to the completion of the pitch in breach of planning now consists of 8 columns, each of 2 light units making a total of 16 lights. The 4 U columns are situated on each side of the pitch at mid-pitch position, which puts them directly in line with our lounge patio doors, hence a domineering and intimidating effect, even when unlit. The new lighting system is extremely bright, and the lights are not only the 3G pitch, but much of the surrounding area, including all the adjacent properties, including the actual Cobham clubhouse, and especially the rear of number 5, which is a less effect on number 3. Many photographs have been sent to the planning department from various sources showing these effects. The retrospective planning application looks only to mitigate the system that now exists. No reason or argument has been given for the extra lights other than they are needed to enable the pitch to be used. This is somewhat ambiguous, as the old grass light was supposedly used with the old lighting system. The 2 lighting reports again only set out to mitigate the new system by replacing the current light units and does not consider any actual lighting requirements. We cannot find any mention or understand as to why the 2 columns next to our property are 1 metre higher than the rest of the columns. We have viewed similar installations locally and have yet to find one with as many lights units as those already installed, even on much larger pitches. One of the potential mitigation solutions is to plant 30 Leyland eye trees to shield the property from the bright lights, and are proposed to be maintained at 4.5 meters high. They are already planted. Not only will they drastically reduce our western light, but it also reduces our skyline view from our lounges by a considerable amount. They also appear to fall foul of the Height Edge Act, which is to be further investigated.
Mr. Downton, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but your 5 minutes are up now.
Sorry about that.
Are you near the end?
I'm virtually finished.
Okay, thank you.
Right. We have no faith in this height being maintained, as many other pledges made in the original submission by the applicant 18 years have been completely disregarded. We therefore ask the committee to consider our objection seriously and revert to the original approved plans, or at least call for a reduced, much less intrusive system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to now call the applicant and Mr. Kevin, so the applicant, Mr. Giles Moyer, sorry, excuse me, the agent speaking on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Moyer, and Mr. Kevin Lobo speaking in support of the application for Chatham Social Club. Thank you.
Chair and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Kevin Lobo. I'm a committee member for Cobham Sports and Social Club, and I would like to explain from the club's perspective the additional floodlighting is essential and the positive impact it's actually having on our members and surrounding wider community. Firstly, the 3G pitch itself has become a vital community asset. It is used safely and consistently by children, young people and adults who previously had nowhere else to train. Demand for the evening training has increased significantly. Recently, without the additional lighting, areas of the pitch would remain unusable. We operate the lighting responsibly and with clear limits. The lights run from Monday to Friday and finish at 9:30 during the last of the training sessions. At weekends, we do not use the lights at all, and we have chosen not to hire the pitch out for evening competitions to be respectful for the surrounding neighbourhood. The key factor here is because of the facility is a community-based one, it's not a commercial venue. We've also taken proactive steps to address concerns. We commissioned professional lighting considerations at a consultant at a cost of £1,500 to make recommendations on lighting mitigation and compliance, and we'll be following their recommendations fully. We've invested £4,910 to plant a 4.5 metre tree natural green barrier to improve screening over time, and maintenance of those trees across that belt will be borne at the cost of the club. In addition, BCP Council Senior Leisure Development and Partnership Officer Jan Hill has also reached out to the club to ask whether the pitch could be used more widely across the community, to which we've said yes, and we would be happy to host walking football, walking rugby sessions to help people with injuries rehabilitate. We've also been approached by other local teams who would like to leverage the pitch in the evenings where other previous 3G pitches have closed within the surrounding area, and it's the additional lighting that will help make these additional opportunities possible. The pitch is essential to the financial sustainability of the club. With rising energy, labour and food costs, we must generate an alternative revenue income for the club to keep it viable for the thousands of current members that use the club day to day. It's the lighting that will enable the safe and all year round usage of the pitch and the club, and therefore support the club's ability to support the wider community. We've invested in the facility over many years, and our intention has always been to provide something positive for Merley and the surrounding area. And we hope that the committee will recognise the genuine community value of the pitch and the enhanced lighting, and the responsible way that we operate it, and the steps taken to address any concerns. Thank you for your time. I'll now hand over to James.
Good morning, councillors. The club are of course pleased to see that the application has been recommended for approval and are grateful to the officers for the opportunity to respond to consultative comments during the course of the application. The revisions to the lighting scheme, which are yet to be implemented, will ensure that lighting will not have any adverse impact on neighbouring properties, irrespective of the presence of the hedgerow. It's important to note that the revisions, as I say, are yet to be implemented, and the club are happy to agree to the suggested wording in condition 2, which requires 2 months for those revisions to take place. The revisions include changes to the lantern specification, adjustment to the tilt angles, and the addition of shielding, all of which collectively will ensure that the lighting proposal is acceptable, suitably controlled, and will not have a material impact on neighbouring properties. Having considered the amendments, as you heard, your Environmental Health Officer has provided an updated consultation response confirming that they are satisfied the revised scheme represents a suitably robust lighting strategy, and they've advised that the proposal now adequately addresses their previous concerns. The updated lighting calculations take account of the revisions, demonstrate the predicted light levels at nearby residential properties fall within the relevant professional threshold limits, and such the scheme is considered acceptable in terms of light spill, glare and sky glow. As you've heard and as set out in the officer's report, the proposal received no objections from key consultees, including the Highway Officer and your Environmental Health Officer, having considered the amendments, and equally no objection has been raised by the Ecology Officer. You've heard from Kevin the significant benefits that flood lighting will provide, and I hope you're able to support the officer recommendation and approve this application. And just as a point of clarity, this application, as I'm sure you're aware, relates only to the floodlights. The 3G pitch has been approved and implemented as per those approved plans. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to return to your seats, please. And I would like to now call up Councillor Richard Burton, who is the ward councillor, who wants to speak in objection, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for letting me speak. And yes, it's not an objection, and also my congratulations on being elected as Vice Chair. I called this application to committee. It's not the sort of application that I normally call them, being it small and affects a small number of residents. However, the effect on these residents, as you've probably just heard, is large, and I felt it was important for the decision to be made by the committee and scrutinised. I also have concerns about the impact of these lights have on road safety and of the wildlife. I realise it's a retrospective application for the lights. The artificial grass surface has already been granted. However, I need to refer to the application for context. So the application to erect an artificial grass sports pitch with associated perimeter fencing landscaping was passed last year. I know there's a shortage of these facilities locally. People have spoken to me about it, and the application was to change the surface for training use for members of the Cobham Social Club. There was no application for extra lighting, and the application said for training only and for members. And I think you've heard that has slightly changed in what the applicants has just said. I knew that this application would result in extra activity at this site, but I could see that in balance that there was an advantage to this. To help the committee, I did email some photographs, some images around to you. So I hope you've had a chance to see them, but so you can further understand what the situation is. The first one I just took from Google Earth, showing what the site was like before the installation, and it's quite similar to what actually is on the board there, just a little bit closer in. So it's an area image showing the same area of the map on page 83 of the report. You can see the training area as it looked carefully. You could see the lights, the poles of the lights before. They're very difficult to see what they used to be like. The application said that these only, for the previous application, would remain, and there would be no mention of any extra lights. You can see on the image I sent you, the solicitors, which is the building is marked on that photo, on that image. There are two businesses in that left-hand side building, and this application has little impact on them. The right-hand side of the building is a private residence, and there are two bungalows, and you can just see the roof of a house on the far right. And the road in the foreground, which you can also see on that, is Gravel Hill, the A349, the main road running north from Poole. The bend in the road, just where the Murley Tunnel is marked on the image I sent, is a known accident spot. There are pedestrian controlled lights obscured by the trees in my image. They're just on the, just where the red box is, parallel to the end of it on the right on the image there. Since 2000, there have been 14 collisions on the road, on that particular piece of road that you can see in the foreground. One of these has been serious. Most of them have been just on the bend outside the first bungalow. Most of them have involved one vehicle misjudging the bend. It's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit road. The second limit that I showed was taken early December last year in the evening, and it shows the lights being used. And of course, on the images we've seen here, none of them shows what it actually looks like for the residents when they're being used. The first image that I showed was actually of the drive of the bungalow, so you can actually see what the cars would see going around that road and what pedestrians would see where they're crossing the road by the lights. You can see the lights on the left on that image. They would change from the previous single units to brighter units, and you can also see the 4 extra units installed. The third image I sent shows the effect of the lights on the back of the second bungalow. It was taken at 1919 on the 4th of December last year. Personally, I don't feel that it's acceptable for this level of light pollution to be inflicted on these residents. These facilities now seem to be used every day and let out to community so that the lights are on every evening up to 9:30. There's associated noise and disturbance with this, which I know isn't relevant to the application, and it's been investigated separately. I know that the chair of Paul and Purbeck Group of Dorset Campaign for the Protection of Rural England has also made an objection to this. They can't be here, and I'm sure you've read that objection, so I'm not going to read it out. But I would say to point out that this site is in the Greenbelt. It's right next to a wildlife corridor where I personally observe bats. Well, I used to until last winter. The tunnel marked on my first image, you would always see them flying underneath there. No attempt seems to be made to reduce the light spill at the moment, or use a colour temperature that's less damaging to wildlife. I do accept that there has been some changes in the application for that, but I'm showing you what is there now, and also the lack of trust that the neighbours are having with this application. Thank you for the time, committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. Thank you, members. We'll start with questions now, if anybody has any questions regarding this application. Councillor Farquhar.
Yes, indeed. I know it's not included in the application, but to me, with the representation from the objector, can we just confirm that these Cyprus leyandii trees have actually been planted as opposed to being proposed on the actual plans that we have in front of us?
Kelly, are you able to answer that?
I can answer. Yes, they have been planted, but they fall outside the application site. And as I understand it, on land not owned by the applicants. We have no control over those, but they are there.
Thank you.
May I just ask as a follow-up, because it was mentioned about a certain act as regards hedges, etc., that is in play. Would that be subject to some sort of enforcement or investigation outside of this planning committee?
Are you referring to the Higher Hedges Act?
I don't know what the applicant was referring to, but he certainly did refer to hedges, and they may well be high. Just on that one, 4.5 metres is, what, 15 odd feet, just shy of 15 feet for those in old money, is that Cyprus leyandii have a long history in this country as being a bone of contention, whether the land is owned by, a residence or not, where they're planted. So my curiosity is that why does it appear on here as proposed when it falls outside of the application or falls outside of the land which is there? Because the money has come from the applicant. They said that themselves in their presentation. So my question is, will there be a further retrospective application, or is there some sort of exercise that residents or members of the public can actually make a representation for this planting?
So there's several things. So one, the original application description did include a planting. That was removed because we can only consider as proposed development within the red line. So we can't consider through this planning application the planting because it's outside the red line, and we can't plan in grampians, etc., because we are unclear about land ownership. The planting of trees or hedges is not development in itself, so it is not through planning enforcement that any action could be taken. However, there is the High Hedges Act, which is to do with, I think it's the Antisocial Behaviour Act. Should it get through, I'm not an expert in the area, it would be a different department who deals with that, but essentially the trees become so large that they are antisocial essentially. So that is a route to go down should they get to that scale.
Thank you. Are you satisfied, Councillor Farquhar?
Yes,
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you. I'll bring it up in debate.
Okay. Councillor Rampton?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Question for clarification, if I may. So the application is for retrospective, and I understand we had a letter from the planning consultant, and we've also heard from Mr. Moyer that the specific changes to the lantern specification, adjustment to tilt angles, and addition of shielding are yet to be implemented. So my question is, how relevant, with respect, is Councillor Burton's representation and residents' representation, as we have not had these new measures implemented as yet? And I suppose my follow-up question to that is, if they are implemented and they are still regarded as causing an issue, what then? Is there any follow-up action possible?
Ms Harrington?
So I'll answer the first part, and then I have a plan to show you which demonstrates the light spill of the revised lighting. So new plans have been submitted which improve the lighting, reducing the light spill. And should members grant planning permission, there is a requirement for that scheme to be implemented. What was it, within 2 months of the date of any permission. And obviously that can be enforced and that would require the change. I'm just going to share my screen and show the, apologies, bear with me. There we go. So for clarity, the Council's Environmental Health Officer has assessed both schemes. The first, the originally submitted, where they drew concerns, and the second, where they found to be acceptable. What you're looking at here is a plan of essentially light spill, and each of those lines denotes a number of lux, so light spill essentially. And you can see the rear of the properties 5 and 3 there. Now, we use the National Institute of Lighting Engineers guidance to assess the impact of any lighting and light spill. And essentially, if I need to take my glasses off. It's a luminance to the rear of any sensitive sensitive areas such as gardens, windows, etc. is below 10 lux or pre-curfew, so that's generally before 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and post-curfew 2 lux, then the scheme is unlikely to cause adverse harm. So this blue here, this blue line here, if you can see coming into the back of the gardens, that's 0.5 lux. And this blue line here is 1 lux. So this is how we can assess that the proposal would not result in adverse harm. And this all ties back to the specification of the lighting. So bear with, I'll go back. This is the guidance here that I've just referred to. It's a diagram showing the angle of the spill across this way. And these are the specifications of the mounting of those lights. So in combination is how we've come to the assessment that these lights, as proposed and revised, would not result in adverse harm.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Ms. Harrington.
Could I just have
yep,
another question,
we'll come
please?
back, yeah.
Which is that I think the applicant said that the lights would only be on Monday to Friday, which presumably would be to 9:40 in the evening. So not weekends, but Councillor Burton seemed to be saying that at the moment they're on 7 days a week. Is that, which is correct?
Kelly, are you able to answer that?
The condition is Monday to Sundays, including bank holidays, 9:40 p.m. I don't know.
So 7 days a week?
That is a condition.
Yes.
7 days a week. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chapman-Law.
Yeah, can we just go back to that Lux chart? Do we have a comparison of how it is now in the current configuration compared to what's being proposed? Just sort of for comparison, so we can see how much it's going to improve.
Bear in mind that the existing lighting is unauthorised as it stands, but I'll have a look and I'll see what I can find.
Councillor Martin?
Yeah, I just wondered, is the installation of the court itself being a nuisance, which it's shown to be, has that been taken into account with this application for the better lighting? And my other question would be, what time does it start? And we've talked about when it closes at night. I wonder what time it started in a day, and could we say we'll let you have the change of lighting, but we want to reduce the hours that the lighting is to be used for? You know, that the court is open. Could we make that variation and perhaps close it earlier? Close it at 7 o'clock. Start it at 10 o'clock in the morning instead of whenever it does start.
The condition was 9:40 as per the original application.
But could we say, but if you're going to change the lighting, we want to reduce the hours at the same time?
As it stands,
Can we do that?
The hours of operation are set by that regional permission. So if we were to oppose a different hours of operation for the light, it would just apply to the lights and not the use. So it wouldn't achieve your intended outcome. We could impose a management plan. Again, it will be associated with the use of lights, so in the evening, but it would enable some feedback and control in terms of any behaviours, etc., during its use.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Salmon.
Just so section 33, 34 and 35 are on the impact on highway safety. Just as the original reason for the calling does cite the highway issues, I wondered if we had any elaboration on how it had been decided the lighting wasn't any kind of highway safety issue at all, given those statistics on fatalities and accidents.
Thank you. Ms. Hanks.
BCP Highways have concluded that the scheme had no impact, no adverse impact on highway safety. Obviously, we don't have our BCP Highways representative here at the moment. I don't know if Katie Harrington can add.
Sorry, just sharing my screen again with the Lux diagram. Again, this is a plan focused quite close to the site, but I've shared this instead of the actual presentation. But the road is some distance away from this, and the blue line is 0.5 lux, so the impact on highway is going to be minimal, particularly given that night vehicles will be driving with lights, which will be much brighter than 0.5 lux.
Thank you. Okay.
There's nothing like an industry standard that was applied that we can look at. It's just they have done exactly what we've done just now in committee and looked at this is how far the lights go and gone, that's enough to dismiss it. because I'm aware that there's a phenomenon, Councillor Chapman law, I bet you will know about this, where you will have maybe two junctions or two roads running not quite parallel, but a particular angle. And if the speed of the vehicles is right, what will happen is, you've got a blind spot in your car where you can't quite see, you can't see out the front, you can't see out the side because of the whatever it is on your car. You've got that blind spot because the angles of the road are so perfect, two vehicles moving at the right speed won't see each other right up until the moment of collision. Now, those kind of accidents used to be very frequent because we weren't aware of that in designing stuff. What I don't like is I've got a ward councillor going, this is somewhere where we're getting lots of RTCs, and I believe that part of the problem is going to be these lights. And I've just got a couple of single sentences. I'd like to know, here's the really robust methodology that we have used to determine that it's not a problem. Because if it is just looking at a map and going, this is how far we reckon the light will spread, that doesn't quite tick the box for me.
Okay. I'm not an expert in obviously highway matters, so I will not obviously give you my professional opinion on that, other than the fact that the topography of the area around the site.
I'm sorry to jump in. I can answer. I'm the highway officer.
Highway officer then.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, is that Mr. Smith? Yeah.
No, it's Steve Stace. I was the highway officer for this application. It was just to confirm that the assessment was done based on, obviously, as we've already mentioned, the distance of the lights that are facing the highway, the buildings to the front offering a buffer for those lights. And I did do a site visit in the evening time, obviously when it was dark back in March, and drove by, did a site visit and found that the lights didn't have any adverse effect on the junction or when you drive past that site. So that's how we've come to our recommendation. Hope that helps.
Perfect. That's just what I was looking for, Mr. Stace.
Yep, thank you. Any more questions from anybody? No? Okay, can we go forward onto the debate?
Sorry, Chair, did we get a response on that, or did I miss it?
You missed it.
I missed it.
You
Sorry.
missed it. You missed it.
So if anybody would like to start with the discussion. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I'm not really in favour of this application. I think the applicants have been inconsiderate to the neighbours in the first place, because that's a huge piece of land, and yet they've chosen to site the court last year in 2025 as far away from the clubhouse as possible. So they didn't want it spoiling their amenity. They don't care if it's spoiling somebody else's amenity. It's also, but ironically, it spoils the view from the clubhouse, I would imagine. So I think it was ill thought through to place it where it was in the first place. My other comment is, will the tree height of the Leylandii be maintained? It's inconsiderate in the first place. If they don't consider there will be a glare, then why are they actually planting the trees? So they accept that there will be some glare and there's some loss of amenity to the neighbours. I just think the whole thing is inconsiderate, really, and a bit wishy-washy over. I know that they've got definite opening and closing times with the first application, but it seems they've just got a bit more of a free-for-all. They're saying they're not using it at weekends now, but there's no reason why they couldn't use it in the future, which totally spoils the outlook for their neighbours. I think my main thing is they should have built it close to the clubhouse in the first place, really.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sidaway.
When you look at the plan, you're right. I mean, why would you put it right down there? But that's history, isn't it? I think that the thing for me, these facilities are fantastic for the community, and we should do what we can to support them. And I wish we had one in Broadstone. We don't. But having said that, what is the point of issuing a decision notice that says no more floodlights if they just ignore it, stick them up, and then come in and we go, oh yeah, okay. Because had the application come in together with the pitch and the lights, and this had all been part of that discussion, we would have been able to discuss whether the sighting of the pitch combined with the lights and the noise that that creates as a package would be unacceptable. And now we're not, because one half has been accepted and now they've snuck the other half in. So from my point of view, I think that's definitely something that I think is wrong. I think the mapping of the light and showing the line of where the light goes to, we can see from the picture that Richard submitted that, yeah, the light itself, but you can see the light from a long way away. And I think it is, for me, it's probably too close.
Thank you. I think the Senior Planning Officer would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify the chronology of the development on site. So, Councillor Martin, you said that the football pitch was placed very close to the residential development. That football pitch existed for a number of years prior to the 2025 application. The 2025 application changed the surface of the grass pitch to an artificial pitch. And yes, it had condition number 7, which did not include any lighting. As a case officer then, myself, I did ask the applicant agent whether there is any change to lighting and invited them to submit that. And it wasn't considered as necessary at that stage. Hence the condition being there. The aim of condition was to clarify the position. However, it does not stop the applicant of revising that. The way it's been done is obviously retrospective, but it wasn't ever intended in terms of controlling or restricting any further lighting. It was just to ensure that we could consider the impacts. For the purpose of the 2025 application, those impacts were non-existent from the lighting perspective. However, the football pitch existed in that location. It wasn't put in that location, or the floodlights were not put in there in 2025. They existed there prior to that application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Salmon.
So I think I agree with the points made about the lighting and about I dislike the planning system overall and how retrospectives can be done and all of that. But I must say I can't see any reason in this report or in the evidence to refuse. I would actually like to propose that we grant the application subject to the 2 conditions outlined in the report. I think that's the decision we have to make.
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. Do we have a seconder at all? Councillor Hitchcock, thank you. Does anybody have anything further to say? Any more comments regarding the application? Okay, so shall we go to the vote now? And so,
Yeah, so just to add to that, vote for approval subject to the conditions of the officer report and the amendment sheet. And the additional informative for that.
are you happy with that? Yep. Okay, lovely. So if you'd like to please vote now, those in favour.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Those against?
1,
And those abstaining.
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
So that is carried. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll take a brief break again while we have a changeover of officers. Okay, everybody, we're ready to start again. Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, welcome back to the Western Planning Committee meeting. And we're going on to now the last application of this meeting, which is 75 Evering Avenue Pool. And we will start with the presentation from Sophia Dykes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. The application before you today is at 75 Evering Avenue, with the description of development reading: demolition of single-storey outbuilding at rear, change of use from caretaker's residence to educational use, construction of new single-storey extension and covered area, perimeter fencing and repositioning of main entrance gates together with automation. The application site is located on the northern side of Evering Avenue and forms part of the Manoside Academy site. The site is occupied by a detached bungalow that's been used as a caretaker's residence. However, it has been vacant for some time. It is proposed to change the use of this property to educational use. It would only be used by 10 students with additional needs between ages 7 and 11, and it would allow those 10 children to move over from the main school and not have to relocate to another school with the appropriate facilities to meet their needs. It's understood that there'll be 4 to 5 members of staff in the building, and 3 of whom will be newly employed for this purpose. It's therefore considered that the proposal would expand the educational facilities of the school, enhance the usability of that part of the site, and it would be consistent with the established use of the site that would comply with the provisions of policy PP20 of the pool local plan. It's got an aerial view image here. The application also consists of replacing the previously existing single-storey flat roof rear extension with a new one of a similar footprint with a pitched roof, the addition of a covered area to the rear on the existing house standing, and an access ramp to the front of the building. A new access gate connecting the site to the academy site and a new pedestrian access gate to the back of the site are also proposed. For the safety of students and staff, a new wide mesh fencing is proposed to the inside of the existing retained hedging growing on the eastern and western boundary. The existing vehicular and pedestrian access gates to the academy are proposed to be relocated further into the site, and they will also be automated. Here are some photos of the existing bungalow. The previously existing rear extension has been demolished, and this part of the application only is retrospective. And here's the floor plans, which show the proposed single-storey rear extension and covered area. The application building would consist of 2 teaching rooms, a circulation area, storage, toilets, kitchen, and intervention. Students would be based in the building for the majority of their time, but they would still have access to the rest of the school facilities for specialist teaching, shared events, physical education, and playtime. The external areas would be used as a breakout space for students who may need time away from the classroom during the school day to support their learning. And here's the roof plans, which show the extensions. The proposed replacement extension to the rear of the application building and the covered area would only be visible in glimpses from Evering Avenue, and due to its single-storey scale would be considered to be subservient to the application building and preserve the character and appearance of the street scene and the wider surrounding area in compliance with PP27 of the pool local plan. The proposed ramp to the front of the building and the wire fencing would be more visible from the road. However, due to its small scale and siting, it would appear subservient to the application property and is considered to preserve the character and appearance of the area and the wider surrounding area. Regarding the impacts of neighbouring amenities and privacy, the proposed extension would be single-storey in scale and due to its minor nature would not cause any material harmful loss of daylight, sunlight, loss of outlook, and it would not appear overbearing. BCP's environmental health team has been consulted on the proposal, concluding that the proposed educational use of the existing building on site by 10 pupils is unlikely to alter the noise that is already established at the academy site associated with the existing outdoor areas. No additional car parking is proposed. However, the Manoside Academy has a relatively large car park and an overflow car park, which is believed to total 70 spaces. It is considered that this car parking provision would meet the requirements within the BCP parking standards and has been supported by BCP's highway officers. There's no change to the vehicular access arrangement other than the gates being set back into the site and becoming automated, which raises no highway safety concerns. There is a maturing ash tree of importance along the southern boundary of the site with Evering Avenue. This tree provides visual amenity that contributes to the character of the area. BCP's tree officers have been consulted and have concluded that there is sufficient area for the storage and mixing of materials, and it's unlikely the proposal will have any undue impact on the health or amenity of the tree. It should also be noted that the application is exempt from biodiversity net gain as it is de minimis, as there's no more than 25 square metres of habitat impacted by the development. Just to note from the addendum sheet, 2 conditions have been removed. As I had mentioned, BCP's environmental health officer had been consulted, and yeah, sure.
Yeah, just explain what happened here. So during drafting, I questioned the reasonableness of these 2 conditions that were requested originally by the environmental health officer. This is given the small scale nature of the proposal, and that effectively it's adjacent, right next to a part of a much larger school which has no such restrictions. Following that discussion, environmental health agreed, and we're happy with both those conditions being removed.
Thank you. The proposal would expand the educational facilities of the school whilst complying with the relevant policies of the pool local plan. As such, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions.
Thank you very much for that presentation. We have 2 speakers registered to speak, and these are going to be read out by Rebecca Rhodes. We'll then go, these are objectors, we will then go on to listen to the applicant in support of this application and the 2 ward councillors.
Thank you, Chair. So the first statement is from Mr. Green, who, regarding 75 Evering Avenue. Please place on record my formal objection to the proposed change of use at 75 Evering Avenue Pool, and I ask that this statement be considered in full as part of your deliberations. This objection is submitted on behalf of myself and several neighbouring residents. My objection is based on the applicant's failure to demonstrate compliance with established planning principles, particularly those relating to residential amenity, evidential accuracy, and the proper consideration of professional environmental health advice. The environmental health officer raised clear concerns regarding noise levels arising from the proposed use and identified specific mitigation measures. A later unrecorded discussion between the EHO and Mr. Moores attempted to dismiss these concerns on basis that any additional noise would be lost within the existing playground noise during school playtimes. This assertion is fundamentally flawed. The HO's concerns remain unaddressed and the application does not incorporate the mitigation she recommended. Under the national policy framework, decision makers must ensure that developments do not create unacceptable levels of noise and must safeguard the living conditions of existing residents. The application as submitted does not meet this requirement. Evering Avenue is a quiet residential street. Noise associated with the neighbouring school has already increased significantly in recent years. The school itself has acknowledged this by relocating playtimes to the rear of the site following repeated complaints from residents. This directly contradicts the claim that additional noise would be absorbed into the existing levels. The school's operational changes demonstrate that noise is already at a threshold requiring active management. The applicant's evidence regarding pupil numbers is also unreliable. Official Ofsted and gov.uk data confirm that Manaside Academy has grown from 227 pupils in 2013 to 422 in 2026. This is inconsistent with the figures presented by Mr. Moores, who has claimed that numbers have reduced and who has admitted he has not visited the site. The committee cannot reasonably rely on unverified or inaccurate data when assessing residential impact. The proposal now anticipates 20 additional pupils, not the 10 previously stated. This will intensify noise, traffic and parking pressures. Parking congestion and illegal parking have already worsened since the school moved its drop-off and collection points into the public highway. Granting permission without implementing the HO's recommendation controls would exacerbate these impacts. For these reasons, the proposed fails to demonstrate that it will not cause harm to neighbouring residents. I therefore respectfully urge the committee to refuse the application. Please press record my intent to report the misleading information provided by several parties to the relevant standards authority. The second objection is from Mr. Clark, and I'll read that now. So, good morning, committee. I'm unable to attend due to health issues. There have been a number of misleading statements made throughout this process. Initially, it was stated that pupil numbers would not increase. Within 3 weeks, this changed to an increase of 10 pupils, followed shortly afterwards by a further increase of 20 pupils. It is also important to note that pupil numbers have already increased by over 52% since 2018. Since the closure of the designated pick-up and drop-off point, local residents have experienced a considerable increase in both traffic and noise levels, and there have been numerous complaints and near misses. Environmental Health originally made several recommendations intended to help mitigate noise from the proposed facility, including a noise management plan. However, following an undocumented conversation between BCP schools and Environmental Health, most of these recommendations appear to have been removed. In addition, Environmental Health seems to have been provided with inaccurate information or made an incorrect assessment. It has been suggested that any additional noise would simply merge with existing school noise. This is misleading as the front playground is not used throughout the day due to previous noise complaints from nearby residents. Therefore, this facility will generate its own noise levels at the front and to the side of the school boundary. The proposed change of use is situated within 6 feet of an existing residential boundary and is therefore highly likely to result in continued noise disturbance and further complaints. We are currently monitoring noise levels and will continue to do so moving forward and provide these to relevant organisations. We will also be reporting the whole process and misleading statements to relevant standards authority at the earliest opportunity. For the reasons outlined above, this planning application should be refused. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my concerns.
Thank you very much for reading those out to us. We now will hear from Mr. Moores, who I believe is online. He is in support of the application on behalf of BCP.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking in support of the application in my role as Schools Capital Programme Manager in the Education and Skills Service. This proposed resource provision will support the Department of Education's estate strategy and BCP Council's SEND sufficiency strategy by accommodating children and young people with special educational needs in a mainstream school setting. BCP Council operates in an environment where the majority of the schools are controlled by academy trusts, and the expansion of education provision is often dependent on working in partnership with these trusts and the accommodation that they have available. Bannerside Primary Academy and their trust, Authentic Education, responded to BCP Council's request to work in partnership to provide a resource provision for 10 pupils. There is no spare accommodation within the main school building, but the school has proposed the use of its vacant residential caretakers accommodation. Repurposing the building for education makes efficient use of available accommodation, offers value for money, reduces disruption to the school, and prevents the building from becoming derelict. The proposed base will supplement the existing resource provision at Bannerside and allow a progression pathway for the 10 children in the infant phase to move into this base without having to relocate to another school. The base will be used by up to 10 children aged between 7 and 11 during standard school hours. Pupils will be based in the building for the majority of their time, but will still have access to the school facilities for specialist teaching, shared events, physical education, and playtime. The needs of the pupils placed in this base make it essential that they have access to dedicated external breakout space for short periods of activity during the school day to help support their learning and focus. This breakout space is available when required by pupils to regulate their behaviour, and 4 dedicated staff will work at the base to supervise these activities and support behaviour management to ensure a calm and purposeful learning environment. The noise generated by this breakout space will be small when set in the context of the playing field and playgrounds, which are also directly adjacent to neighbouring properties. Although these 10 pupils are additional, the school was originally built to accommodate 630 pupils and has since reduced its published admissions number and now has a capacity of 420 pupils, with 385 pupils recorded on roll in the most recent census at the end of 2025. This means that the traffic generation has been substantially reduced from what the site is designed to accommodate. The Bannerside Primary School resource base is a great example of partnership working between the Academy Trust and the local authority. It helps to be a key education priority in providing spaces for pupils with special educational needs, uses available accommodation efficiently, supports a mainstream school by repurposing empty space with funded pupil places, and provides an opportunity to create a well-resourced facility to support some of our most vulnerable children. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moores. We're now going to ask Councillor Richard Burton to come and speak as portfolio holder for Children's Services.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have asked to speak in favour of this application due to my role as portfolio holder for children, young people, education and skills. I know everybody, councillors here will know that, but I'm just saying that to make sure that people who are watching and the other officers are aware of it. Before I speak in favour, I would like to acknowledge that parking at drop-off and pick-up times is an issue at this school and many around, or in fact most around BCP and of course around the country. I've looked at many of these myself many times. If you look at Google Street Scene of this school, you can see in the last 2 editions, cars parked on the zigzags outside the schools, and this is not at the school drop-off time, so you know that demonstrates it. I've also noticed that the head regularly asks parents in the school newsletter to be considerate and legal with their parking. So that demonstrates that there is an issue, but it also demonstrates that the school is doing what they can to address it. As councillors, you will know about our SEND improvement plan. It says our plans are to increase early support for our SEND learners, promote greater inclusion in our mainstream settings for SEND learners, and where necessary, have the right amount of specialist provision delivered through the mainstream settings. For a school to receive a successful Ofsted rating under the new framework, they must look at how well disadvantaged and SEND learners are supported. Ofsted say that Manaside, from their last inspection, is a good school. It had 420 pupils on roll at that point. This seems to have dropped to 385 by the end of 25. The school was built to accommodate 630, i.e. 7 full classes more than they have now. So with the current building, they could have 210 more students and at least 7 more members of staff accommodated without the need of any further planning consent. However, the birth rate has reduced locally and nationally, and there is no sign that this will change in the foreseeable future, hence the drop in numbers. So a facility for 10 SEND students isn't going to add anywhere near this number of extra journeys that the school was designed for. And remember that many of these children, probably half, will already be attending the school. So we're only looking to increase possibly 5 pupils coming in from outside and probably 5 from within the school itself. The planned use of this for pupils is classified as SEMH, social, emotional and mental health. Whilst each pupil have individual requirements, one common theme is that they require a quiet, calm space in which to thrive. You can see from the plan that the sensory space is included. This is designed to be a quiet, relaxing space. A facility like this will not be noisy. Finally, I would remind the committee that the current bungalow could have a family with 3 cars and the normal noise that families can make all day, every day. This facility will be open 8 till 4, 5 days a week and 40 weeks of the year. So that will actually be produce, even if there was noise, a lot less than the family could produce. I would also notice that it did say in the report that, of course, that these pupils will not be confined within this space all the time. They will be integrated within the rest of the school, and that includes in play and break times. Thank you, committee.
Very much, Councillor Burton. I'd now like to invite Councillor Tony Trent, who is the ward councillor who called in this application and is speaking to object.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'm not necessarily speaking to object, but to raise concerns. But I want to give the reason why I called it in, because it's very important for future applications. This is, it was on BCP land. It's also effectively a BCP application. It was on paper a BCP application. In the past, these have always automatically gone to the planning committee and not dealt with as a delegated decision. And I was very concerned that this was dealt with as a delegated condition, and slightly embarrassed that there's been at least one other, which just happened to be in my ward, that didn't go through committee, although that didn't actually generate any objections. As I say, personally, I've got no objection to the change of use of and the moving of 10 pupils from within the school to a specialist thing on site. That doesn't cause a problem. What I am concerned about, and I know it's not really a major planning issue because the numbers aren't increasing, but I am concerned about the management of the parking, some residents have alleged that and I don't know for certain, that the school isn't allowing parents to drop off within the school property, which then makes the 70 parking spaces and the drop-off zone a rather irrelevant justification. And the new gates moving within the site and having automatic barriers does rather add to the feeling that if they are allowing parking within the site, that is not going to be as easy in the future. And we know, as has been acknowledged, that parking outside schools is a major issue. There's a working group that's been on it, and I think it's one of these issues which ought to be passed over to the Transport Advisory Group, which is the most underused democratic facility we've got within BCP. We do need to have constructive discussions about dealing with these issues. I think the school needs to have discussions with the nearby residents about how they actually use that site, because the less parents dropping off in front of the school, and unfortunately that often means the zigzags, the better. There are also other issues where, you know, people park on nearby roads and they sort of walk into the school, and, you know, they block driveways and things like that. So that is an area of concern. And I do believe that we also need to have transportation involved in or leading a discussion as to how they can actually improve that site. There are some ideas floating around, and I gather my fellow ward councillor has got some sort of ideas, but that needs to be looked at. And although it can't be a negative on the planning application as such, I do request that the planning committee actually put an advisory to get these conversations going, because schools need to maintain a good relationship with the community around them, and, you know, everyone needs to be able to get on and sort of sort these problems out. And there are problems, you know, and I agree they're in all the other schools, but, you know, there are problems that do need to be looked at and sorted out. And and the barrier access does worry me, because I'm not clear about the dropping off there. I was a governor at that school 25, 30 years ago, and, you know, then you drove in, parked, or the parents picked up, and, you know, if you went to a governor's meeting, you made sure you were parked before the parents came in and started to, but, you know, so it was part of the regular use of the school. But I just want to repeat again at the end that we really need to make sure that all these applications do automatically go to committee, that they should not be delegated decisions, because that is against the sort of the rules that we work within. So so hopefully I've made those points.
Thank you very much, Councillor Trent. As there are no further speakers registered to speak, we'll go to the questions. Anybody? Oh, okay. Okay, Councillor Martin.
Just a very quick one. I'm just a bit concerned. Am I right in thinking from the plans there's going to just be one toilet? And I'm thinking you've got 4 members of staff and up to 10 students accommodated in this building. And what happens if that toilet's out of order? I don't think one toilet is sufficient for the numbers anyway. And then if that goes out of order, you're pretty well stuffed for the day. So that was my question. Am I right in thinking there's just one toilet?
Looking at plans, that appears to be the case, but it's not something that we can control through the planning system. So
just so it's not. It doesn't come under planning then. It's not. No.
No,
because I know you've got room sizes and things. All right. Okay.
No,
I'm
but
surprised. I'm
fortunately
surprised
not
about
toilets.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar.
Thank you, Chair. There was mention in the officer's presentation of the amenity offered by the ash tree, I believe, to the front curtilage of the site. There's also in the application the provision of 2 bat boxes to be mounted, what looks like in the eaves of the change building. My question is that what consideration was put to the biodiversity conservation to actually put a TPO on that ash tree, and why would bat boxes be mounted on a building that is occupied during the day rather than in the ash tree? So that's the question I have.
If we start with bats first, it was a recommendation of our biodiversity officer to provide bat boxes as a biodiversity enhancement according to policy. Whilst the unit might not be used all day, it's available for bats whenever they may wish to roost or sit, etc. What was the first question? Sorry, what was the first question again? Just it's escaped my mind.
There was mention of the immunity offered by the ash tree, and why or what consideration was given to preserve our biodiversity or put a TPO on that particular tree.
So within the scope of this application, the proposal itself would not have a material impact upon it. So in that regards, there was no justification or reason to consider TPOing that tree. Outside of this planning application, that is not something that development management would consider. That'd be down to our cultural team to consider whether or not there's sufficient risk to the tree to warrant a TPO. And I'm not aware of any circumstance in that regard.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Farquhar, any further questions? Councillor Rampton.
Thank you. Paragraph 28, just want to clear something up. Bear with. It says the building will be used by 10 pupils aged 7 to 11, and then it goes on to say the arrangement would allow 10 children ages 4 to 7 to be able to move into this building. So I just want to check, we are talking about 10 children aged 7 to 11. Is that a typo, or is there's no plans to have 20 children there of different ages?
Yeah, thank you. Just to qualify, it's once they get to age 7, they will move into this building. It's what the officer report meant is they're within the school, but once they reach age 7, they can come over between ages 7 to 11 within the proposed building.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from anybody? No? Okay, then we'll move on to the discussion, the debate. Councillor Chapman-Law.
Unfortunately, I have the pleasure of using Evering Avenue on quite a regular basis, travelling between customers, and it also generally happens around school pickup time, pickup time. And I think the state of the behaviour of some of the parents picking up here has been vastly under-reported. It is awful. It's not just 1 or 2 parents that are breaking the rules. It's a lot of parents, and this application generated quite a large number of emails in my inbox from residents who were worried about any extra input into this. Now, up until the end of last year, my wife worked in Send with an alternative provider, and a lot of Send kids, I believe, I don't have the actual data on this, but I believe that Send kids are a lot more likely to be dropped off by vehicle, be that a parent or taxi. So where most schools generally are around about the 50% mark for active travel, Send kids offer a bigger proportion. So it is going to be more cars than what you would typically expect. And I think that situation is just going to get worse. I did have a conversation with the active travel team and schools team. No, not schools team. I can't remember the exact name of the people. And the school isn't fully involved in the what the offerings from the council. So things, I mean, they do bikeability. They could engage more with Walk Wheel Cycle Trust. There's various other things that the school can communicate with the council on, and they aren't taking full advantage of a lot of this, which would help to improve things. And I'm really concerned that this proposal is going to make things worse unless the school engages more with the council with what's available, like other schools do. I'm not too worried about the noise, but yeah, the school pick up and drop off times are just awful around there at the moment.
Thank you. And Councillor Salmon?
So I echo a lot of what Councillor Chapman Law said, but I think there's nothing in there that's a material planning consideration. I do wonder if we have the option to try and address some of the issues with parking and drop off through conditions. Can we condition something like transport plans, things like that? Consideration of, I mean, I love school streets. We've got one running in my ward. I think it works absolutely brilliantly. I bring them in next week for every school across the conurbation. I wonder if there are any options that officers can think of that we can use to address the parking.
Steve.
He's online.
Oh, is he? Okay. Yeah, please. Are you able to respond to that, Steve?
Oh yeah, sorry. As already mentioned, obviously the parking, picking up and dropping off at most schools is an issue. I did do a site visit at this particular school for early morning, and there were a number of vehicles parked illegally. Although I did see a vast majority of parents were parking some distance away, walking in, some were cycling. So there was more people parking considerably than not considerably. The issue with conditions and travel plans is basically the size of the development. You're talking about a small number of children for a school that's not at capacity. We wouldn't consider it be sort of reasonable, proportionate to add any condition regarding travel plans to resolve what are existing issues when the development is for such a small number of children. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Councillor Martin next, and then.
Yeah, just following on from that, just one of my thoughts is, it's always baffled me. We're a 9 to 5 obsessed society, and I don't see why we couldn't, as part of the travel plan, have a staggered start to the day for different, for different school ages. That would work very, very well. So not all students start at 9 o'clock. Some start at 8:30, some start 9:30, some start at 10 o'clock and finish later in the afternoon, and that would alleviate some of the traffic issues, because you wouldn't have everybody all arriving at the same time and all leaving at the same time. It's just a thought if we could put that in as an advisory. What I was actually going to say though, I think it's a great idea to use this building this way. Looking at the plans, looking at the size of it, if you were to sell it as a home instead, at most it would be a 1 bedroom, maybe 2, and the market's already flooded with the 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom places in this area. So I think it's better. It's a good idea to use it in this way. I think SEND children will really benefit from this, especially having this sensory room. The access looks good. They've got a ramp. Looks like children that are wheelchair users could easily use that, and staff for that matter, that with wheelchair users. My other advisory would be for more toilet facilities, because I think 1 toilet for what it's going to do is just ridiculous. It's the bigger picture as well is if you've got an area where you can put SEND children, where they could easily go back into main school, or if they need to be back in the special area for them to help them. Children can become quite distressed in the classroom sometimes, and so you might have to send them over there temporarily with a view to getting them back into mainstream school. And I think this is absolutely ideal, because it's somewhere they can feel secure and safe and really, really thrive. The bigger picture as well is if you've got a child that's distressed in the classroom, they're actually quite disruptive to the other students as well. So I think all in all, it's a really good use of that space. That's my view. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Sidaway.
Yeah, Councillor Martin has said a number of things that I agree with there. I think this is an excellent facility. Any facility that provides more space for our kids with special educational needs, especially on site where they're not then being forced to go to another school which may be some distance away, increasing their stress. And I'd be happy to propose that we accept this.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hitchcock. Okay. Is there any Councillor Salmon? Sorry, Councillor Rampton, you've been waiting.
Yeah, thank you. I actually can't understand why this hasn't come forward before, because it just seems such an obvious thing to do, and something which really improves educational facilities. We're talking about 5 extra children, so I don't think there's going to be a huge number of extra cars or taxis on the road. It's got a C3 classification. I think it's a 3-bedroom bungalow at the moment. It could be occupied by a big family with vehicles and who occupy it 24/7. And the noise would be far more than it would from just being Monday to Friday 8 to 4. So I wholeheartedly support the application.
Thank you.
Just again, with regards to the motions, I just require your clarity in that it was for approval subject to the officer's report and the addendum sheet and including a BAT informative.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Salmon.
Just will check, so there's nothing we can do in terms of saying we can't condition school streets to be tried within the next 6 months or anything like that. We can't pull that lever.
No, because it would only apply to this small application, whereas such a small number compared to the bigger nature of the scheme, we couldn't tie the two together.
Yeah, I agree completely with what Councillor Salmon says, but I wouldn't do it because you're right, it's on this one. But I think if there was something we could do as a council to look at school streets, I know we're trying to look at one in Broadstone, and I think they are an excellent way to provide safety for our children going to school. And if there was a way as a planning committee, we can make a recommendation to council as a whole to have a look at this, I think that would be a really worthwhile thing.
That's an excellent idea. Councillor Chapman-Law.
Yeah, I mean, this place screams for School Street. It's absolutely screams for School Street. It's got 2 accesses from either end, which could easily be blocked off. It's got plenty of on-street parking within a short walk. It just camera-enforced School Street would be absolutely perfect. But
Thank you. Would anybody else like to add anything before we go to the vote? No? Okay, so Ms Harrington, if you could just clarify what we're voting.
So my understanding is that it's been motion to approve subject to the conditions within the officer's report, addendum sheet and the BAT informative.
You happy with that, the proposal? Yep, lovely. Okay, so we'll go to the vote now. So all those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's unanimous, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. So that brings this meeting to a close. No, okay, just not.
Very quickly, we do have an appeals report, which is for noting. There's no cases that have been overturned by committee. It's therefore noting only. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That closes the meeting. Thanks, everybody.